What's up guys, welcome back to more Reddit stories about Karens, crazy people, and all that kind of stuff. Hope you're all doing awesome today, and as usual, it's time to check out some more Reddit posts. So feel free to share your thoughts about today's stories down in the comments, and let's get into it. I was arrested, kept in jail for 62 days, and then released after the DA finally got around to my case. I did nothing wrong. Okay, so a few days ago, I was released from the county jail after being held for 62 days. I lost my job, didn't pay rent for almost 2 months, almost 3 now, and my car is in the process of being put up for auction and they won't release it. I was arrested for felon in possession of a firearm. I'm not a felon and never have been or had anything expunged, and at the time of arrest I didn't even have a firearm on me. And reckless endangerment, firing a weapon at the side of a building. Again, something I did not do. I had an initial appearance thing in the jail over video where I was given a public defender, who was completely and absolutely useless. I'm not sure if this is the norm for public defenders, but he didn't say anything I told him to at this appearance I had, because a simple background check shows I don't have a felony, and on the night this all allegedly happened, I was out of state, plane tickets and hotel with work. He literally just said not guilty, then asked for a signature bond. Judge or magistrate guy denied it because felon with a firearm is a huge thing. So then I sat in jail for a total of 60 days before my public defender even came to see me. I tried to call him every day with the phones and the number on the paper I had, but he was never in and never came to see me. I couldn't afford a regular attorney who wanted around $2,500 to even start a criminal case. I don't really have family or super close friends to call for help. I was fired from work, obviously, and now late on rent and will be evicted probably, because I can't pay without a job and definitely not $2,100 plus utilities for rent on the 3 months I'm about to owe. When he finally came and saw me 2 days before my next appearance, and he finally listened to me, he talked to the DA, who apparently also had not looked at my case, or my letter I mailed them until then also. After that appearance, I got a, "Sorry, computer error, you are free to go." And I was released. What can I do for any of this? Apparently someone with the same name but a different date of birth shot a building after a fight and is a felon. But I sat in jail, lost my job, can't even get my car back they say unless I pay some crazy fees. How am I liable for these fees if it was an error? This is in Madison, Wisconsin. Edit. Thanks for all the replies guys and gals. I'll contact the Wisconsin branch of the ACLU tomorrow and see what they say and where to go from here. Also, I appreciate the messages offering to help me if I need it, but I can kinda survive frugally on my credit cards if absolutely need be, and will be contacting my boss tomorrow and explaining the situation. Edit 2. To clear up more confusion about my car, the city had it towed by a local company they are contracted with. The storage fees are $1,900 and growing daily, and I only paid $3,500 for the car 2 years ago. The towing company that has my vehicle told me the city can waive their percentage and pay the rest to them and I can get my car, but told me good luck. Also, their policy is to only store the vehicle for 90 days before auctioning the car. And that brings us to the update. I've spoken to several attorneys and law firms throughout the state, and have settled on one and signed the papers and all that stuff today. I want to thank all of you for giving me advice on what to ask and look for when speaking to them all. It really helped in narrowing it down and figuring out who was the best to go with. I can't really give out a whole lot of information because we are just starting to gather all the pieces and put it all together. To answer the endless messages I received about race, I am white and early 20s. The person I was misidentified as is also white but in his 30s. I spoke to my boss in HR and will be back at work very soon, and 2 months pay advance that will be paid back with overtime. Also, my landlord was really nice and is letting me pay back the rent over the next few months in installments. Okay, this is just an absolute nightmare. All this that OP went through over a simple computer error, and one that could have easily been corrected if someone just looked at it, but it took them 2 months to even do that. That is seriously insane. That's gotta be such an annoying thing to hear after being in jail for 2 months. Oh, actually, that was just an error. Oops, sorry about that. I do hope that in the end OP was able to get some kind of compensation for the time they spent in jail. I would imagine so, since OP got an attorney and went to court over it. And given that OP's incarceration was very obviously a mistake, it should be a pretty simple and easy case, right? I mean, one could hope, but sometimes you just never know when it comes to the US legal system. Created a problem to keep my annoying neighbor occupied and get some peace. In the early 90s, we bought a new house on a lot that was recently severed and sold from the neighbor's property. It was a large corner lot divided into 2 parcels. The back parcel was originally intended as a second driveway to connect the side road to the neighbors, but was mistakenly sold to us. Our neighbor, a known grumpy old guy, insisted that this back parcel was his property and was never intended to be sold. He and his lawyer messed up. He would often stand there right in front of our bedroom windows to kind of mark his property. Trying to have a reasonable conversation with him was impossible. I repeatedly told him that I had the deed and that the property line wasn't going to change. His wife was rarely seen as she had limited mobility and spent most of her time watching TV connected to a C-band satellite dish. At the time, I was working in wireless and had access to test equipment. To find a way to keep the neighbor occupied and hopefully give us some peace, I decided to generate interference that would jam his satellite signal. I set it up on a timer so their signal would cut out 10 minutes before the hour and come back 10 minutes after, meaning they would consistently miss the beginnings and ends of their TV programs. This definitely kept him busy trying to figure out what was wrong. He even called out technicians, but of course, the issue never occurred when they were there. I could often hear his frustrated outbursts, and I imagine his wife was adding to the pressure. After a few weeks of this, I walked over to him while he was fiddling with the dish and casually mentioned that I worked in wireless and had some knowledge of satellite communications, and maybe I could have a look. He was immediately interested, so I climbed up the ladder, pretended to adjust something, gave him some technical-sounding nonsense about what I had found, and then told him it was fixed. I then stopped the interference coming from my house. A few days later, he came over to thank me profusely, saying I'd fixed it when no one else could. From that day forward, he was the friendliest neighbor and never mentioned the contested piece of land again. The time I punched someone in the face for assaulting my brother with Down syndrome. My little brother has Down syndrome. Ever since he was first born, I've been very protective of him, and whenever people were picking on him, which sadly was often, I would always be there for him. I used to get in fights at the playground because other kids were making fun of him and I was sticking up for him. He's 22 now, and he's always had a hard time getting forward in life thanks to his disability. At the time of this story, he was 19 and had just written a CV, handed it in, and had an interview all by himself. I couldn't have been prouder of him. I picked him up from the interview and he was so happy, walking me through everything they'd said and asked him and how nice the people interviewing him were and everything. I decided that he deserved a treat, so I told him I was taking him to his favorite store and he got even happier. The employees at the store are all smartly dressed in suits, which I think contributed to the situation, as having just come from an interview, he was also smartly dressed. I left him alone at one point because he said it was alright if I left him because he knows he can do things for himself now, and I thought it would be a good confidence boost for him if I left him alone for a few minutes, which was probably a bad idea in hindsight. I was looking at clothes a few aisles away from him when I heard him shouting, so I ran back over to where he was and saw that a woman had grabbed him by the arm and was pulling hard. Normally, I don't think violence is a good thing, and if I could go back, I probably would have just shouted her down instead. But seeing my brother there shouting and in distress put me into f***ing rage mode, and the first thing that registered in my brain was to get her away from him. I ran right towards her and punched her right in the face. Obviously, this got her away from him, and she spiraled out onto the floor. Everyone had already been looking since my brother was shouting, but now everyone was. I didn't care, I just tried to comfort my brother as she shrieked at the top of her lungs for security. A security guard had already been there and had witnessed her assaulting a customer with Down syndrome, so he helped her to her feet and told her she needed to leave. This made her shriek even louder, screaming and pointing a shriveled up old claw at me, saying I had hit her and I needed to go to jail and that she would sue the store and blah blah blah. I wasn't listening. After she was kicked out, I was asked to leave as well, which I sort of expected, seeing as I had hit a woman, but my brother was crying and wanted to go home, so I took him out. I haven't been back to that store with him since. As we were driving home, I asked him what happened, and he said she was standing behind him, but he didn't take any notice of her, and eventually she shouted at him to give her assistance, which made him turn around. Apparently she hadn't noticed he had Down syndrome and had thought he was an employee, and had grabbed his arm supposedly to drag him off to where she needed assistance, and that's when he started to freak out. He was scared that he'd done something wrong since we were kicked out, But I told him he did nothing wrong at all, and I took him to McDonald's to make him feel better. I regret turning the situation violent, but one thing I won't regret is helping my brother out in a situation that was distressing and scary for him. My neighbor's dog ruined my sleep, so I used it to ruin his. Every night from midnight to 3 a.m., his dog would bark non-stop right outside my bedroom. Deep, loud, echoing barks like he was announcing the end of the world. I asked my neighbor twice to bring the dog in. Both times he brushed it off with a smirk and said, "He's just doing his job." Cool, then I'll do mine. I started recording the barking on my phone. The next morning at 6 a.m., right after my neighbor got home from his night shift, I played it back full volume through a speaker pointed at his wall. I repeated that for 2 mornings. No yelling, no threats, just his own dog giving him a taste of what I'd been dealing with. On day 3, the dog was inside before 10 p.m. Hasn't barked at night since. Sometimes the best revenge is pressing play. Boss said we can't drink water at work, period. Location: Orange County, California, working at a grocery store with no union. I got called into the office where my employer proceeded to degrade my work and pointed out my clerks were, quote, wasting time drinking water. We're legally allowed 2 15-minute breaks before and after lunch. I found it unusual that he would point out that it's not illegal to deny us water breaks. Breaks as in 5 to 10 seconds or however long it takes to drink water. In my 8 years working at this company, this was never an issue, but suddenly today it was. I've been denied my 15-minute breaks before as well. More so that I was accused of not working, which, yes, because I'm allowed to take breaks. I'm leaving that place and never looking back, but I would like to report this man for abusing his employees. Do I have something, or it is what it is? And people in the comments are strongly urging OP to report this to OSHA. OP later comments and says, "Just an update. I filed a complaint. I will be following up and hopefully bring some justice." Yeah, so of all the silly things that we've read about employers doing, telling their workers they're not allowed to drink water is certainly a first. Anyway, that's going to be all for today, guys. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Be sure to drop a like on the video if you enjoyed and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. Also, feel free to drop a comment down below. So I'm out of here. Take care, friends, and I'll see you next time.